Alright, so it's Friday night in the shop here, about 11 p.m. This is how we like to spend our Friday nights. And Matt just picked this car up this week. It's a 94? 94 Honda Civic EG 4-door. And it's got the stock engine in it right now. And we're pulling it out. And Matt recently put together this K-Series 2-liter K20 from an RSX Type-S with a 6-speed trans that we're going to put in this car, and we're going to try to get it ready for the Woodward Dream Cruise, which is a couple weeks from today. So we got the old engine sitting right there, and then we've got the car prepped for the new engine to go in. So got a couple things done. We looped our power steering lines there. We're not going to run power steering. And we got this new engine mount. We bolted it to the frame, and then I put some welds on it too, and Matt painted it white to match the rest of the car. And then we also we knocked off our AC condenser brackets and our radiator mounts brackets, and we're going to relocate the stock radiator over to this side and reuse the factory mounts. So once we get the engine in, we're going to figure out where it goes and weld those back on the frame. But we are ready to get this thing tucked up in there. We're sitting here about a month later. We did not make it in time for Woodward with this car. Ran into quite a few different issues, so I'm going to walk around. It's running now. I'm going to walk around and show you some of the issues we ran into. The first issue we ran into, lifting this engine up in here from the bottom. Matt bought this motor mount kit from eBay. I don't know how to say this, but you know, take your guess on how that's pronounced. And I think the motor sits in here. It's hard to tell. Kind of looks like it's coming down a little bit on the driver's side. Like, it's not super level. And then what we ran into is, this is a power steering rack. We looped the lines. And if you see right here, I had to cut a big chunk out of the power steering rack just to get the transmission and engine to sit far back enough that we could bolt this mount in. And I actually ended up shaving some of the transmission case as well, just to create enough clearance in there. So it's really tight, but there's enough clearance now. So the second major issue we ran into was with the radiator. We were going to try to reuse the stock radiator, and Matt bought these nice hoses from K-Tuned that are supposed to be like swap hoses for the stock radiator, and they fit up on the engine just fine, but then you try to go to attach these to the stock radiator and they're really loose. Like, they are not the right size for the stock radiator. So I don't know what purpose those serve. They didn't work for us at all. Matt just ended up ordering a really nice hybrid racing radiator and the hybrid racing hoses that go with it. I know this hose is kinked here to try to give you some space to run an air intake. It's kind of odd because it actually would have been better if it was straight. It would have allowed this curved factory RSX elbow that we have to kind of fit better anyway. So that was problem number 2. And then also this cooling fan comes from Hybrid Racing, and you can see it would have fit the stock radiator just fine. Stock radiator is taller, but this cooling fan doesn't actually sit flush. I'm not going to be able to get it in here, but you know, basically it has to sit on the bottom end tank and then go, you know, sit flush against the core here without hitting the top end tank, and it's about a 1/4 inch too tall, like either way, to sit flush against the radiator core. So then for fuel system, Matt did buy a return style fuel rail and a external pressure regulator from this company. It's called Spania. I think it seems like more of a no-name brand. The AN fittings that came with it were really poor quality. The fuel rail fit well, but we ended up buying a couple 45 Earl's AN fittings that were nice, much better quality. We ended up having to put a reducer in on the return line to match it up to the factory line. So it really wasn't like they didn't give you everything you needed in the kit. And then because we're still running the factory Civic fuel filter, we needed a banjo fitting for the fuel filter. So bought this AN to banjo fitting separately, and that's how we plumbed the fuel. Another issue we had is Matt actually, he bought a used header from a friend of ours, and we didn't know what it was from, and it turns out it was for a K24 swap, not a K20. And so the header hangs down way lower than it should. Let me get under here and try to show you. So you can see that's like 4 inches off the ground and not going to work for us, but it works just for the purposes of starting the car and seeing if it runs. I would say other than that, we had good luck. He did the power steering delete from who?
That was K-Tuned.
From K-Tuned, okay. And you know, we spliced in our starter wire, and the shifter cables came out really nicely through the typical hole, like 1 3/4 hole punched through the dash panel there behind the motor mount. Nothing special for that. And then extended some of the body grounds, and that was about it under the hood. So then inside the car here, we used the stock RSX shifter box, and Matt bought an adapter plate off eBay. So we actually used riv nuts in the body to bolt the adapter plate to the body from the top, and then the RSX shifter box just bolts into the adapter plate, and that worked out really nicely, and the shifter position is really nice for Matt. I think the last issue is Matt was going to try to use some base RSX axle shafts, and you know, so he bought a couple $40 axle shafts off Rock Auto, and the outers on the RSX base actually do slide into the Civic knuckles, but the axle shafts weren't the right lengths. The driver's side seemed like it was just a little too long and binding up, and then the passenger side was just like, is probably 2 to 4 inches too short. And then we tried to see if we could like hodgepodge some combination of the stock Civic axles with the RSX axles to get the right length and the right joints, but the inners on the Civic axles are just smaller than the RSX kind of outer shell, and so they would like knock around. They're just not compatible with each other. I don't know how people do this. If you've figured out how to do this, drop us a comment, because I would love to know. Matt ended up buying insane axle shafts. What, like 500 horsepower axle shafts?
Yes, sir. 500 horse, and they fit very well.
And it was like what, $400?
They were $400.
Yeah, so that was a rough $400 hit, but it's what we had to do to get it working. So there's still a few other things to sort out, like the air intake pipe and mounting the IAT sensor in there, but you know, like most of our videos, this isn't really a how-to. There's plenty of great how-to videos on how to swap a K-Series in. This is just us kind of showing you what we did and how it went, and I think it's ready to at least go for a rip and see how it runs. You gotta watch the RPMs, okay? I'll tell you when to shift. Yeah, what do you think, Matt? You happy?
So I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
And I was just saying, I don't know if it was the noise that got me more or just how much ass this thing
It was
held.
really loud. It's hard to tell how much of it was noise and how much of it just felt awesome. But so Matt's gonna take this thing home and clean up the last bits at his place. We're kind of done with everything we need to do on the lift in the shop here. So that'll be the end of this video. Thanks for joining us for this one. Let us know. We've never done a K-swap before. I know a lot of folks do them, and it's been going on for a lot of years, but I'm sure there's a lot of things we could have done differently. And if you've got suggestions for Matt or what we could do different next time, drop them in the comments. Let us know how you like the car, and we'll see you next time.